You are on HOA Karen Patrol. The warning sticker hit the glass while I was still talking. The wheel lift arms slid under my rear tire, and Gloria shouted that she was doing the neighborhood a favor by getting my car out of sight. I am sending this email right now, I said, holding my phone up so she could see the screen. She lunged forward with her clipboard and tried to swat it out of my hand. The tow driver froze with one hand on the hydraulic lever and looked at his supervisor like he wanted an escape hatch. I work as an apartment maintenance supervisor in Tallahassee, Florida. I have seen every kind of complaint. Parkside Homeowners Association is the kind of place where certain homes get special treatment, and everyone knows it. Gloria Perez is the fines and enforcement coordinator, and she brags about collections. She had slapped a bright warning sticker on my windshield 2 hours earlier, and now she was standing in my driveway, acting like she owned the pavement. The sticker had no readable text, but it was neon orange and covered half the glass. She kept tapping her clipboard like a conductor keeping time. You parked overnight in a guest spot, she said. That is a violation. The tow company has authorization. This conversation is not a debate. It is a directive. I pointed at the chalk marks on my tire. I said those marks were not there this morning. She smiled and said chalk does not lie. The tow driver looked at his phone and then looked at me. He said his dispatch told him this was an abandoned vehicle complaint. I said, it is not abandoned, and I live here. Gloria cut in and said I was parked in violation, and the board had voted to enforce zero tolerance. I had moved into Parkside 6 months ago because the rent was reasonable and the location was close to my work sites. The HOA had seemed normal at first. Then Gloria started her enforcement campaign. She posted notices about guest parking, overnight parking, decals, permits, fire lanes, and street parking bans. Every notice came with a threat. She called it compliance. I called it a shakedown. My phone was about to die, and Gloria was trying to run out the battery while she kept yelling. I had maybe 5% left, and I needed to finish sending the email to the property management company before the screen went black. The tow driver said he needed to see the authorization paperwork. Gloria pulled a folded packet from her clipboard and handed it over. He flipped through it, and his face changed. He said the signature on the bottom did not match the name on the HOA letterhead. Gloria said it was a clerical error, and he should proceed anyway. He said he was not proceeding without proper authorization, and he walked back to his truck. Gloria followed him and started yelling about contracts and liability. I looked at the couple on the porch across the street. They were sitting in lawn chairs watching like it was a show. The woman raised her iced tea in a little salute. I had been gathering proof for 2 weeks. My security camera footage with metadata showed Gloria posting notices herself at odd hours. The timestamps contradicted the tow authorization timeline they claimed. I had saved every notice, every email, every text message. My friend Marcus works as a property manager, and he knows HOA procedure and records requests inside out. He told me to document everything and wait for Gloria to overreach. She just did. I stared at the violation letter she had taped to my door that morning and smiled, because it proved exactly what I suspected. Gloria came back and said the tow driver was being difficult, but another truck was on the way. I said no other truck was coming because I had already sent the proof to the tow company dispatch. She said I was bluffing. I held up my phone and showed her the sent email with the timestamp. Her face went red. She said I had no right to interfere with HOA enforcement. I said she had no right to authorize a tow without following the actual rules. She said the rules were whatever the board decided. I said the rules were in the governing documents, and I had read them 3 times. The tow driver got a call on his radio and then walked back over. He said his boss reviewed the email and they were pulling out. Gloria started shouting about breach of contract. The driver said there was no contract if the authorization was fraudulent. He unhooked the wheel lift arms and they dropped with a clang. Gloria threw her clipboard on the ground and said this was not over. The couple on the porch started clapping. The woman yelled that it was about time someone stood up to the HOA. Gloria picked up her clipboard and stormed toward the street. I checked my phone. 2% battery left. If you are enjoying this HOA showdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where karma hits hard. Marcus called me that night and said I needed to file a formal complaint with the board before Gloria could spin the story. I said I was already drafting it. He said I should also request all enforcement records for the past year under Florida statute. I said I planned to. He said good, because Gloria had been doing this to other people and nobody had fought back yet. I asked him how he knew. He said his sister lived 2 streets over and she had paid $300 in bogus fines just to make Gloria go away. I said that was extortion. He said welcome to Parkside. The next morning, I found another notice on my door. This one said I was being summoned to a hearing for interference with HOA operations. The hearing was scheduled for Friday at 10 in the morning. Friday was the one day I had a hard work deadline. I had a contract inspection that could not be moved. I called the management company and asked if the hearing could be rescheduled. The woman on the phone said the board sets the schedule and I would need to attend or face a default judgment. I said that was absurd. She said it was policy. I said I would be there. I rearranged my entire week to make the hearing. I finished the inspection Thursday night and drove back exhausted. I printed every email, every photo, every notice. I clipped them together in a stack of printed photos with timestamps written on sticky notes. Marcus came over and helped me organize the packet. He said I needed to stay calm and let Gloria dig her own hole. I said I would try. He said no, you will do it, because the moment you lose your temper, she wins. I nodded. He said bring extra copies and hand them out to every board member before she can object. Friday morning, I walked into the community center conference room. 5 board members sat at a folding table. Gloria stood at a podium with her clipboard. She had color-coded sticky notes labeled by dates all over the edges. She looked at me and smiled. She said I was being charged with interference, harassment, and filing false reports. I said I had not filed any false reports. She said my email to the tow company was defamatory. I said it contained only facts. The board president, a man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses, said we should proceed in order. Gloria said she would present her case first, and I would not be allowed to interrupt. She spent 10 minutes describing how I had parked illegally, refused to comply, and then threatened a vendor. She said I was a danger to neighborhood safety. She said I had a pattern of violations. She pulled out a printed log that claimed I had parked in guest spots on 14 separate nights. I raised my hand. The board president said I would have my turn. Gloria kept talking. She said the board had no choice but to fine me $2,000 and move to revoke my parking privileges entirely. One of the board members, a woman with short blonde hair, said that seemed extreme. Gloria said the rules required strict enforcement. She said this conversation is not a debate, it is a directive. I waited until she sat down. Then I stood up and handed out my packet. I gave one to each board member. Gloria tried to object, but the president waved her off. I opened with the timeline. I said the tow authorization was dated 3 days before the alleged violation. Gloria said that was a clerical error. I said no, it was evidence of premeditation. I pulled out the security camera footage stills. The timestamp showed Gloria placing the warning sticker on my windshield at 6 in the morning on a day I had not parked in a guest spot. My car was in my assigned space. The sticker was on the wrong vehicle. Gloria stood up and said the photos were doctored. I said I had the raw files and the metadata, and I would provide them to anyone who asked. The board president said he wanted to see the metadata. I pulled out a USB drive and handed it over. Gloria said this was a circus. The blonde woman said it looked like Gloria had made a mistake. Gloria said she never made mistakes. I said actually, she made a lot of them, and I could prove it. I pulled out a second set of photos showing chalk marks on my tire. The photos were taken 15 minutes apart. In the first photo, there were no marks. In the second photo, fresh chalk circles appeared. Gloria was visible in the background holding a piece of chalk. The room went silent. Gloria said I had no right to surveil her. I said I had every right to record activity on my own property. The board president rubbed his face and said this was very concerning. Gloria said I was twisting the facts. I said the facts spoke for themselves. The blonde woman said she wanted to review the governing documents to see what enforcement procedures were actually required. Gloria said they had already voted on enforcement policy. The woman said she did not remember voting on fraudulent tow authorizations. Another board member, a man in a polo shirt, said he was uncomfortable moving forward without legal review. Gloria said they did not need legal review. She said she had been enforcing the rules for 5 years and nobody had questioned her before. I said that was because she targeted people who could not fight back. The board president said we should table the motion and reconvene after consulting the HOA attorney. Gloria said that was unnecessary. The president said it was necessary, and the meeting was adjourned. Gloria grabbed her clipboard and stormed out. The blonde woman came over and said thank you for bringing this forward. She said others had complained privately, but nobody had evidence. I said I had plenty more evidence if they wanted it. I walked outside and Marcus was waiting by my truck. He said he listened through the door and it sounded like I killed it. I said Gloria was not done. He said no, but she was in trouble now. I said I hoped so. He said the board would have to respond or face liability. I said I was counting on it. We drove to a diner and I bought him lunch. He said I should send the full packet to every homeowner in the neighborhood. I said that felt aggressive. He said Gloria had been aggressive for years, and nobody stopped her. I said I would think about it. That weekend, I got a call from the HOA attorney. He introduced himself as David Park and said he had reviewed my packet. He said he needed to ask me some questions. I said I would answer anything. He asked if I had any other documentation. I said I had video files, email chains, and a timeline of every interaction with Gloria over 6 months. He said he would like to see all of it. I said I could send it today. He said that would be helpful. Then he said something that surprised me. He said based on what he had seen so far, the association would not be able to represent Gloria if this escalated further. I asked what that meant. He said it meant her actions appeared to be outside the scope of her authority and potentially criminal. I sent the full file to David that afternoon. Monday morning, I got an email from the property management company. It said the board was suspending enforcement actions pending a policy rewrite. It said Gloria had been placed on administrative leave. It said all fines issued in the past 90 days were under review. I read the email 3 times. Then I called Marcus and told him. He laughed and said, "You actually did it." I said it was not over yet. He said it was over for Gloria. I said I would believe it when I saw it. Tuesday, I got a certified letter from the HOA. It said the board had voted to freeze all enforcement activities and conduct an audit of past violations. It said homeowners who believed they had been fined improperly could request a refund. It said the board was forming a compliance committee to review enforcement procedures. The letter was signed by the board president. There was no mention of Gloria. I taped the letter to my fridge. That evening, the couple from across the street knocked on my door. The woman said half the neighborhood was talking about what I did. She said Gloria had fined them twice for having a ladder visible in their driveway. I said that was ridiculous. She said they paid both times because they did not want trouble. Her husband said they were filing for a refund. I said good. Wednesday morning, I was leaving for work, and Gloria was standing by the mailbox cluster at the end of the block. She was holding a folder and talking to another homeowner. When she saw me, she stopped talking and stared. I walked over to check my mail. She said I had ruined her reputation. I said she ruined it herself. She said I was going to regret this. I said I already regretted moving into a neighborhood where someone like her had power. She said, "You are not the first person I have corrected, and you will not be the last." I said, "Actually, I think I am the last." She opened her mouth to respond, but the other homeowner interrupted and said, "Gloria, you need to leave him alone." Gloria turned and walked away. Thursday afternoon, I got a call from David Park again. He said the audit had uncovered significant irregularities. He said Gloria had issued over 60 violations in the past year, and nearly half of them appeared to be unsupported by evidence. He said the board was considering referring the matter to local authorities. I asked if that meant police. He said potentially, yes, because falsifying enforcement documents could be considered fraud. I said I wanted to see that happen, but I was not holding my breath. He said the board was taking it seriously now. He said they were also looking into the tow company relationship because Gloria had a personal connection to the vendor owner. I said that explained a lot. He said it explained everything. Friday, I got another email. This one was from the board president. It said the board had reviewed my case and determined that all fines and violations issued to me were being rescinded. It said the association would issue a formal apology. It said the enforcement policy was being completely rewritten. I saved the email and forwarded it to Marcus. He called me immediately and said, "This is huge." I said, "I know." He said, "You have to go to the next board meeting and watch Gloria try to defend herself." I said I would not miss it. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I showed up 15 minutes early. The community center was packed. I counted at least 40 people in the room. The blonde board member told me later that it was the highest attendance in 10 years. Gloria was sitting in the front row with her clipboard. She had her color-coded sticky notes arranged in a fan. The board president called the meeting to order and said they had several items to discuss. The first item was enforcement policy. He said the board had received numerous complaints and had engaged outside counsel to review procedures. He said the findings were troubling. David Park stood up and gave a summary. He said the HOA had been operating outside its authority for an extended period. He said fines had been issued without proper notice. He said tow authorizations had been signed without board approval. He said the governing documents required a majority vote before any enforcement action, and that vote had not occurred in most cases. Gloria tried to interrupt. The president said she would have a chance to speak. David continued. He said the association could face legal liability if homeowners chose to pursue action. He said the board had a duty to correct the situation immediately. He sat down. The room was silent. The president said the board was voting tonight to adopt new enforcement procedures. He said all enforcement actions from the past year were being reviewed, and improper fines would be refunded. He said the board was also voting to remove Gloria from her role as fines and enforcement coordinator. Gloria stood up and said, "You cannot do that." The president said the vote was already scheduled, and she could address the board now if she wished. She said this was a witch hunt. She said I had manipulated everyone with fake evidence. I raised my hand. The president said I could speak. I walked to the microphone. I said I had not manipulated anything. I said I had simply documented what happened. I said Gloria had targeted me because she thought I would not fight back. I said she was wrong. I pulled out another packet and handed it to the president. I said this packet contained evidence that Gloria had signed tow authorizations using a board member's name without permission. I said I had a notarized statement from that board member confirming they never signed anything. Gloria said that was a lie. The board member, a man in his 70s, stood up and said it was not a lie, and he had already given his statement to the attorney. Gloria sat down hard. Her face was white. The president said the board would take a 10-minute recess. People started talking immediately. The couple from across the street came over and said this was incredible. The woman said she had never seen Gloria speechless before. Marcus showed up and said he heard the commotion from the parking lot. I said it was getting good. The president called everyone back to order. He said the board had voted unanimously to remove Gloria from her enforcement role effective immediately. He said the board was also voting to freeze all enforcement actions pending a complete policy rewrite. He said homeowners who had been improperly fined would be contacted within 30 days. Gloria stood up and said this is not over. The president said actually, it is. She walked out. Half the room applauded. After the meeting, David Park pulled me aside. He said the board wanted to thank me for bringing this forward. He said they were considering additional actions, but it would depend on what the audit uncovered. I asked if Gloria could face criminal charges. He said it was possible, but the board had not decided yet. He said they were focused on fixing the system first. I said that was fair. He handed me his card and said if I ever needed a reference or a statement for any reason, I should call him. I said I appreciated it. He said no, the neighborhood appreciated it. I shook his hand and left. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched the fallout spread. 3 more homeowners came forward with evidence of improper fines. The board hired a forensic accountant to review the HOA finances. The tow company owner was interviewed by police after it turned out he had a side deal with Gloria where they split the tow fees. The local news picked up the story and ran a segment on HOA abuses. I declined to be interviewed, but Marcus was not shy. He went on camera and said Parkside was a cautionary tale about unchecked power. The story aired on a Thursday night, and my phone blew up with messages. The board scheduled a special meeting to vote on the final enforcement policy. I went because I wanted to see it finished. The room was full again. The president read the new policy aloud. It required written notice 14 days before any enforcement action. It required a board vote with a quorum. It required photographic evidence and timestamps for any violation. It required homeowners to have the right to appeal before any fine was assessed. It banned towing except in emergency situations and required police involvement. The policy passed unanimously. The president said the old policy was officially dead. Someone in the back yelled finally. People clapped. Gloria did not come to the meeting. I heard from the blonde board member that Gloria had resigned from the board entirely and was considering moving out of the neighborhood. The board member said good riddance. I said I agreed. She said the association was sending a written correction to every homeowner, explaining what had happened and apologizing for the enforcement abuses. She said it would go out the following week. I said that was the right move. She said it was your move, you just made us follow through. I said I just wanted to park my car in peace. She laughed and said mission accomplished. The correction letter arrived on a Monday. It was 2 pages long. It detailed the improper enforcement actions, the lack of proper authorization, and the steps the board was taking to prevent future abuses. It specifically mentioned that all fines issued under the previous enforcement coordinator were being reviewed and refunds would be issued where appropriate. It included a phone number and email address for homeowners to contact with questions. It was signed by the entire board. I read it twice and then pinned it to my bulletin board. Marcus called and said he got his copy. He said this is what accountability looks like. I said it only happened because people finally had proof. He said no, it happened because you refused to roll over. I got my refund check 3 weeks later. It was for $200, covering the fines Gloria had tried to stick me with before the tow incident. I deposited it and bought Marcus dinner. He said I should frame the check. I said I would rather just forget the whole thing. He said you cannot forget it. You won this. I said I did not win anything. I just stopped someone from stealing from me. He said that is literally what winning looks like. I ordered dessert and changed the subject. The neighborhood changed after that. People started coming to board meetings. The enforcement policy was actually followed. The new fines coordinator was a retired paralegal who documented everything and never acted without board approval. Parking violations dropped by 90% because the new policy was clear and fair. The tow company contract was canceled and the board negotiated a new deal with a different vendor that required police authorization for any tow. Gloria moved out in June. I heard she bought a condo in a building with no HOA. I hope she learned something, but I doubted it. I ran into the couple from across the street at the grocery store in July. The woman said the neighborhood felt different now. She said people were not afraid to speak up anymore. Her husband said you started that. I said I just had a camera and a deadline. He said it was more than that. She said you showed everyone that the rules apply to the enforcers too. I said I hope so. She said it was a fact. They invited me to a block party the next weekend. I said I would be there. The block party was the first one Parkside had held in 5 years. Someone set up a grill. Someone else brought a cooler full of drinks. Kids ran around on the grass. The blonde board member came over and said this was what the neighborhood was supposed to be. I said it felt good. She said the board was discussing adding more community events now that enforcement was not sucking up all the oxygen. I said that sounded great. She said thank you again for what you did. I said I just did not want to get towed. She said you did a lot more than that. I said maybe. She smiled and walked off to talk to someone else. I got one more piece of news in August. David Park called and said the county attorney had reviewed the case and decided to file charges against Gloria for filing false documents. He said it was a misdemeanor, but it carried fines and possible probation. He said the tow company owner was also facing charges for kickback schemes. I asked if I needed to testify. He said possibly, but they had enough evidence from the audit that my testimony might not be necessary. I said I would testify if they needed me. He said he would let me know. He said the HOA was also settling with 3 homeowners who had threatened to sue over improper fines. I said good. He said the board wanted to put this behind them and move on. I said I understood. The charges were filed in September. Gloria pleaded no contest and was sentenced to a year of probation and community service. The tow company owner got 6 months and a $5,000 fine. The local news covered the sentencing, and Marcus sent me the link. I watched the video once and then deleted it. I did not need to see Gloria standing in front of a judge. I already knew how the story ended. She lost her power, and the neighborhood got a fair system. That was enough. Marcus asked me in October if I was glad I stayed in Parkside. I said I was. He asked if I would do it all again. I said I would not have to, because the system actually worked now. He said that is not what I asked. I said yes, I would do it again, because nobody should have to pay bogus fines just to avoid conflict. He said, that is what I thought you would say. I said, what about you? Would you have fought back? He said, hell yes, I have been waiting for someone to take Gloria down for years. I said you could have done it yourself. He said I did not have the evidence. I said you could have gathered it. He said I did not have the motivation. I said what changed? He said you moved in. I laughed and said I guess I was in the right place at the right time. He said no, you were just stubborn enough to fight. I said maybe. The HOA held elections in November. 3 of the old board members stepped down. The blonde woman ran for president and won. She called me the night of the election and said the new board wanted to start fresh. She said they were planning a town hall to get input on long-term priorities. She said she hoped I would come. I said I would. She said good, because the neighborhood needs people who are willing to hold leadership accountable. I said I was not planning to be a watchdog forever. She said you do not have to be. You already did the hard part. I said I hoped so. She said trust me, Gloria is not coming back, and nobody like her is getting through again. I said I would hold you to that. She said please do. The town hall was in December. About 30 people showed up. The new board laid out a plan for transparency, regular meetings, and clear communication. They proposed a newsletter. They proposed a community website with all governing documents posted publicly. They proposed quarterly budget reviews open to all homeowners. The room voted to approve all 3 proposals. I sat in the back and watched it happen. It felt like a different neighborhood. It felt like a place where people had a voice. After the meeting, the couple from across the street came over and said, "This is what you made possible." I said, "The board made it possible." The woman said, "No, you made the board accountable first." Her husband said, "We owe you a beer." I said I would take you up on that. We walked out together, and the night was cool and clear. I could hear people laughing in the parking lot. It felt right. I still live in Parkside. The HOA is boring now, which is exactly how it should be. The new enforcement coordinator sends polite notices and follows the rules. The board meets once a month and publishes minutes. The tow truck never comes unless there is an actual emergency. I see the blonde board president at the mailbox sometimes, and we talk about normal things like weather and weekend plans. She told me last month that violations are down 80% and compliance is up because people actually understand the rules now. I said that is how it is supposed to work. She said it only works because someone fought to fix it. I said, someone had to. She said, I am glad it was you. Gloria never came back. I heard she moved to a retirement community in Georgia. I heard she tried to join their HOA board and was voted down. I do not know if that is true, but I like to think it is. Marcus says karma is real, and Gloria is living proof. I say karma is just consequences catching up. He says that is the same thing. I say maybe. We still get lunch once a month, and he still tells the story about the tow truck standoff to anyone who will listen. He always ends it by saying you should have seen her face when the driver pulled out. I say I was there. I did see her face. He says I know, but other people need to hear it. I let him tell the story. It makes people laugh, and it reminds them that standing up works. The neighborhood had another block party in the spring. More people came this time. Someone brought a bounce house for the kids. Someone else brought a karaoke machine. The new board president got up and thanked everyone for making Parkside a real community again. She did not mention Gloria by name, but everyone knew what she meant. People clapped. I stood in the back with a plate of food and watched kids run around and neighbors talk like neighbors should. It felt normal. It felt safe. It felt like a place where the rules were fair and the people in charge actually cared. That is all I wanted. That is all anyone should want. I appreciate your support.